Exactly. Well, no, but I think that's very much to the point. You know, the actors and directors in the room know that sometimes a workshop or a reading pushes people into a greater risk and a bigger piece of courage. And that's what they had to do, because they all, the day before, the night before, they all said, this is appalling. We don't know the lines. We have no idea what we're doing. And now we have to do all that in front of Harold Pinter, who wrote it. And I said, yes, and that's the point. If you can just keep breathing and let go of the outcome, just let go of the outcome and take the next big step in your rehearsal process tomorrow in front of the cameras, and we'll have something. And they all did that. You know, that takes huge courage. And Harold naturally, quite naturally, which I guess I knew, if I was lucky I'd get, he quite naturally empowered that. But workshops and readings are sometimes, I think, the most exciting things to be present at. Yes, please, shout.
When did you start working on the film, and when was he first diagnosed with cancer?
He was diagnosed with cancer?
Oh, about 2005.
No,
Something pretty.
yeah, in December.
December
Actually,
2005.
It was actually December 2001
But it's a peculiarly
that he was diagnosed.
ghastly.
Yeah, 2001 he was diagnosed with cancer.
Well, esophagus cancer, which is usually fatal, but he was one of the 5% who survived the operation.
That's what Hitchens died of.
Yeah.
And when did you start working on the film?
I guess about 2006. It's about 18 months. You see, there's an interview, there's the workshop, and then there's the interview in his study, which is just a single shot of him. That's the day after. He got so drunk after the workshop that the next day he looks quite sweaty and not very well. And then Henry came over probably about a year later, when Harold had, you know, he weakened quite a lot in that year.
Yeah.
This is a little bit of an odd question, but I hope you understand what I'm asking. It seems to me the world is split up into two kinds of people. People who get Pinter and people who don't. And my question is, when he wasn't writing, did he think like Harold Pinter? You know what I mean? That funny, brilliant, quirky, odd thing that he does, did he think like that?
Well, I don't think he, sorry to
Or
interrupt.
just when writing?
I just think that naturally he was extremely selective when he wrote and how he wrote. One of the most selective writers, as far from a stream of consciousness as he could get. But in ordinary life, that just came out naturally as it does with any of us, as part of his mode. Do you agree with him?
I do, I do. Would you allow me to read something?
Yes.
No. Well, I tell you why. Because one of the great questions is, why did he write about the things he wrote about? What was, you know, why is it always so weird? What's that? So the second ever production of The Birthday Party was done in Scarborough, and the first had been such a disaster that this very bright man who taught Harold at the Central School, called Stephen Joseph, asked Harold to direct the second production. This is in 1959. And Harold cast a young actor called Alan Ayckbourn as Stanley. But the cast were completely baffled by the play, and they couldn't wait to get Harold on his own and pump him with questions so that they could try and understand the play. So they took him to a pub in the first week of rehearsal, and they were just about to corner him. We were just about to get going on the play and ask Harold, what does it mean? But before he could tell us, a bloke slid in opposite us, very distraught. Do you know this? Very distraught. He said, "Can I sit with you for a minute?" "Yes," said Harold. And the chap said, "I'm sorry, I've just had a terrible experience and I need to tell someone."
Yeah.
"What is it?" said Harold. "I think I may have killed my mother-in-law." Harold said, "Oh, really? How did this come about?" He said, "Well, I've been married a short time. I come home with my money on a Thursday, and every time that bloody woman's there, and she just snatches the money out of my hands without to buy you leave. We're living with her, me and the wife, and I'm prepared to pay our rent, but she takes the whole bloody lot. So I got home a bit early this evening before she got in, and I hid it." She came home and she said, "Where the hell is it?" and started tearing the room apart, trying to find it. She eventually said, "I know, it's up the chimney, isn't it?" It's a big fireplace. And she got in to look up it. I grabbed her by the ankles and I shoved her up there. She's up there now, she's wedged in. I didn't know what to do, so I just ran out. Harold said, "Oh, well, I think she's probably inhaling a lot of soot. She could be suffocating. I don't think you want to be on a murder charge for your mother-in-law. You may dislike her, but you don't want to go to prison for her." The bloke agreed. "You're absolutely right. I'm not bloody swinging for her." And he ran out. There was a long silence. And I said, "What an extraordinary man." And Harold said, "Was it?" You get it? So that's by Alan Ayck, that's written, that's on the internet, it's by Alan Ayck.
At the end of being told a story like that, it's a lovely story. We had various traditional ways of talking to each other, and Harold would say after something like that, one of us would say, "It's a funny old world we live in," and the other one of us would reply, "But the world's not entirely to blame." I would say that over the years, maybe several thousand times. But is it worth saying this? It's a little bit boring, but that has never stopped me. People don't seem to realise that Harold revolutionised the British theatre. You would, because you're the avant-garde of the cognoscenti. But the fact is that because of something called the Butler Education Act in 1944, children, boys and girls, had to stay on in school in England until they were 16. As a result, a whole class of really working class boys and girls graduated when they were 16, and by 1957, when John Osborne was given the credit, not quite rightly I think, for this swell, this sea change in British writing, which had always been respectably middle class. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with middle class bums on seats. That's what keeps theatres going. But nevertheless, we want to attract young, nubile bums, as they say in the navy.
Very good. He doesn't mean tramps, he means buttons.
You can read that. They've been trained.
It's impossible to finish a sentence.
Sorry.
But these guys who've been at school, these working class boys, were now by 57 writers, and they're using the language not of the middle class writers writing for a middle class audience. They were writing for everyone, including their peers, the working class boys and girls who had now entered a sort of middle class, as it were. So Harold's birthday party wasn't just a different sort of play. It was a play no one had ever seen the like of before, about people they'd never seen the like of before, using language that no one had ever heard before. So Osborne usually gets the credit for that, but look back in anger, it's fairly tamely predictable. It's good enough play, nothing wrong with it. But they still play it in insomnia clinics. That really was revolution. I think that's worth.
It is, and the fact that the play ran for a total of 8 performances in its first run, you know, how close it came to not happening.
Well, they wanted to kill it all, right? It's very odd. I remember when I was in I think in Bristol, I opened the Times, I think it was. Those days the Times critics didn't have to print their names, they could say anything. And there was a not particularly brilliant play by Bernard Coxwell, The Hamlet of Stepney Green, getting a rave notice. And then somebody took a dagger and wrote the review for the birthday party. One of the most damaging, destructive reviews I've ever seen. Why try and assassinate a young writer with his first full-length play? Why try and kill him because they didn't understand a word he was writing? They hoped to nip him in the butt.